You're listening to Jonesy's Jukebox on KLOS. That was Grand Funk. We're an American band produced by Todd Rungren. And before that, we started off with the Rolling Stones, Monkey Man. And Mr. Rundgren is in the studio with us. How are you?
I'm good.
Nice to see you.
Nice to be here with you again.
Yeah. And so I remember seeing that band, Grand Funk, at Hyde Park in London. It was a free festival. And I was like a mile back. And I was like 14, 15. And all I remember was Farnan with the long hair and that silver thing around his...
Uh-huh.
He looked like a...
When he's still dressed like an Indian or something
Yeah.
like that. You know, sometimes you would wear the headdress, but often it was just shirtless with the armbands and stuff. And
the white pantaloonies.
Yeah. You tidy whiteys.
With his package.
Yeah. Well, that was probably before we're an American band, when they were still a trio and they were substantially a jam band.
Yeah.
They would short on the songs and long on the
riffing.
On the riffing.
Was the singer? Did he sing a few songs? I mean, I know the big hit, Some Kind of Wonderful. It's half the drummer, right?
We're an American band is Donnie Brewer, the drummer.
Yeah.
And Some Kind of Wonderful, that's Mark Farner, as well as on Locomotion, the other hit that I had with them. That's Mark Farner. So Mark Farner essentially has that real high, kind of clear R&B-ish kind of voice.
Yeah.
And Donnie has more of a like straight-ahead rock and roll voice.
The drummer.
Yeah.
But don't he sing like the first part of that, Some Kind of Wonderful?
I don't know, because I didn't do that record.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, ironically enough, I think it was Frank Zappa did it.
Really?
Yeah. He produced, I did 2 records with him, and then they figured, let's ask some other weird guy, and they asked Frank Sinatra. Frank
Sinatra, he's on it too, huh?
Yeah, that would have been great. Frank Zappa to do it. But he did a very conventional sort of production. You would have expected something weird, but no.
Yeah. I mean, that's down the pipe, that track, Some Kind of Wonderful.
Uh-huh.
Did they write that? Was that an old?
I think that's an oldie.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's an oldie, yeah.
Yeah. Good. It was a big hit though. I liked it. I liked your record too though.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, when are we getting to me?
Did you did that sell a lot of records? The one, I mean, American Band's a big song. Still to this day, it's one of them songs that, you know, did that sell a lot?
It did sell a lot, yes. It was a multi-million selling record. I remember the party they had celebrating the great success of it. I mean, the whole thing was, I've never been involved in anything like it since. They had, the management had a whole plan for how they were going to roll the band out, and they knew that it was different. The band had a terrible critical reputation. Critics didn't like the band, and they never had like top 40 hits or anything like that. And they had just switched managements from their old Terry Knight was their manager, but he was also their producer, and he wasn't a very good producer, which is why their records were not bigger hits. And we went into the studio. We knew that the album would be called We're an American Band. We knew that would be the single. So the very first thing we did at Criterion Studios down in Miami was, first day we did the basic track, and maybe some of the vocals for We're an American Band. Did a few overdubs and finished it up early the next day, and went right into the mastering lab that was in Criterion and mastered the single and shipped it out that afternoon. Once we had done that, there was a thing they could do in the old days. You could essentially pre-sell the record. You could get pre-orders for the record, and the record would chart even if nobody had even heard it.
Yeah.
So
was that shady?
I don't. There is no record business anymore, so what's the difference?
Yeah.
But yeah, it a week later, we're still in the studio working on the album.
And it's number
a
one.
A week later, it's in the top 20. Hits the top 20 a week later. And then the actual copies get to radio. You know, they press up enough copies to get it to radio, and they start playing it. Then it goes top 5 the next week or something like that. And we're still just finishing the record.
Yeah.
So I'd never been involved in anything like that, where it was so kind of almost baked in. You know, that you knew exactly everything that was going to happen. You knew it was going to be a hit.
Wow.
All you had to do was make the hit.
Yeah.
You know?
What label was that on?
That was, were they on Capitol, maybe? I think they might have been on Capitol. But I never, that's not a detail I pay much attention to.
Yeah.
Stay focused on the music, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Yeah, baby. So you're busy. You've got an autobiography.
Yeah, that's been out since like Christmas.
It was a hit before it was out.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, New York Times bestseller list, and I was still
Still
writing
it.
Yeah.
Okay, let me see if I can say this. The individualist digressions, dreams, and dissertations.
Dissertations.
What does that mean?
It means kind of like a speech,
Okay.
no, or something about a particular topic. It has to do with the form of the book. I can read some books, you know, certain authors I can read, but in general, if I see somebody's autobiography, I think I'm not really going to start that.
Yeah.
Because I might get halfway through and get bored, not want to read it anymore. So I decided I wanted a book that catered to my reading habits. So the book is essentially every page is a whole chapter. So you can open the book anywhere and just read one page.
You're not following a story.
Yeah,
throughout.
you're not following a long arcs
Beginning
and stuff
and
like
end.
that. You know, I'm not describing the curtains and the rug and things. You know, it's very pithy. And each page is 3 paragraphs. And consequently, one is a digression, something I remember, you know, that happened. The dream part essentially is the emotional aspects of it, you know, because people often jumble the two together when they're telling a story.
Yeah.
You know, he did this and then I felt that, and you know, and it's trying to follow the actual action of what's going on, as opposed to, you know, the inner character or something like that. So I pulled those things apart, and then I had a paragraph at the end that essentially is justification for why I ever wrote it in the first place.
Yeah. Do you dream much?
I do dream. Sometimes I don't dream, and then sometimes I dream a lot. It's weird.
I haven't remembered that I've had a dream in a while.
It doesn't mean you don't dream.
Sure.
You know, there are I guess there are levels of brain activity that can get so deep that you don't remember any of it.
Yeah.
I sort of depend on that because it's part of the creative process. You can't like completely, you know, mentalize everything you do. You have to depend on your subconscious to do some of the work.
Yeah.
And so I'm aware of the fact that below my conscious thoughts, there's still stuff going on.
Yeah.
In there, you know.
Do you sleep well, or are you up 4 times a night?
Well, not that often. I get up to pee usually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, that's always.
Well, it's I've discovered that as I've gotten older, if I stay in one position too long, you know, like my knees or something will start to like freeze up. Or hurt. So I find that I have to constantly change my position all night long just to get comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a tosser and turner for sure.
I think your sleep patterns change as you get older. It used to be I didn't need as much sleep.
Yeah. And
now I find I'll take all the sleep I can get.
Yeah. Do you ever get into that feeling when if you have naps? Do you take naps?
I do on occasion, but I don't like to because once I'm getting in, I don't want to get back out.
Groggy afterwards.
Yeah.
I'm the opposite. I have to have naps. If I don't have a nap around 3 or 4 o'clock, then I'm groggy, trying to stay awake.
Okay.
It's a nightmare. But my point was, I mean, maybe you feel this when you come out of a deep sleep, when you're waking up in the morning, but that feeling where you feel like you're somewhere else. It's like it's so weird. It's like,
It's called,
what is life feeling?
Yeah, it's called the hypnagogic state, which is you are in a state of semi-consciousness, essentially, and you're aware of everything around you, but you're not fully up and moving your body
Yeah.
around and that sort
Till
of
you
thing.
come back to reality.
It's the same thing that happens when you're on your way to sleep.
Yeah, when
You
you
get, but sometimes it happens so fast you don't notice. But you go into a state where essentially you've relinquished control of your body,
yeah,
but you're not fully unconscious.
yeah. Nice one. Thank you for explaining it.
No problem. Hypnagogia.
Hypnagogia. You got a book signing Friday from 2 to 4 at Amoeba. A book signing.
Well, if that many people show up, we go 2 to 4.
Yeah,
Sometimes not a lot of people show up and we don't go the whole time, which is why I say it starts at 2, but don't show up at 3:45
yeah.
because
It's a weird time, though, isn't it? On a Friday, ain't it like busy?
well, it's pretty much part of a pattern because the tour that I'm doing now is a hybridized, concert tour and book promotion thing. So
And you're playing Friday too at the
yeah, I
Wilton.
played Thursday and Friday, and the show is essentially kind of based around the book or some aspects of the book. The first act especially is, in the time period that most people find interesting, which was when I first got into the record business and that sort of evolution. Then we have a little intermission, and we do a Q&A with the audience. That's unusual during a concert tour. We set up an iPad in the lobby, and people can ask questions of me, and then we put it up on the video.
At the concert
Yeah,
at the Wilton.
yes.
Wow.
And then we do a second set, but the second set is different every night. Different, just we have a larger list of songs, and I just put together about 10 of them for the second set.
Do you always have you had the same band for a while?
Pretty much. That's Prairie Prince. Well, when he does play in the Tubes sometimes, but
Yeah.
he was in the Tubes when I met him. And Chasm Sultan, who was, of course, in Utopia. Jesse Gress, who's been playing with me since like the late 80s. Greg Hawkes, he's more from the Cars. He's
Yeah.
kind of more recent because I didn't even know him until we did that new Cars thing. And then after that, when my former keyboard player sort of retired from the road, Greg stepped in. He's been doing it ever since. And then we added somebody from if any of my fans remember, we had a big band in the late 90s around Nearly Human with, backup singers and horn section and everything.
Yeah.
And Bobby Strickland from the horn section is in this band for the purposes of just a more complete sound.
Yeah. Why did you call yourself Utopia, not just Todd Rungren?
After or around Something Anything, when I was starting to get known as a solo artist, my songwriting pattern changed because I wasn't just a guitar player in
Yeah.
the band. So I started writing on piano a lot more.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, most of what I was writing was on the piano, and I thought, well, I don't want to stop that. I'm making some progress here, but it's taken a big bite out of my guitar playing,
Yeah.
And so I wanted to have a band so that I wouldn't lose my guitar chops, and that essentially was the point of Utopia. So I did both.
Yeah.
Sometimes it would be my show, sometimes it would be Utopia.
Yeah,
show.
yeah. So it's fun then, more fun.
It's fun sometimes. It can be being in a band is challenging. The world's
know.
most successful band only lasted like 8 years or something like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I guess in some ways, most bands have a shelf life, and ones that last from the 60s till now, like the Stones, that's something freakish.
That's about it, right?
Yeah.
That's about
So
it.
the Zombies.
Yeah. Did you see the rock and roll?
No, I don't watch. I never watch that stuff. No, I have never paid it. I've only been forced to pay attention to it recently because of the nomination. Before that, I didn't know anything about it. Never watched the shows, never paid attention to the nominees or anything, or the whole process. I didn't realize how weird the whole thing was.
Well, it's kind of weird, man.
It's very weird.
The band can go, but if you're bringing your old lady or kids, you have to pay 10 grand.
There's that weirdness. That's a specific complaint that some of the inductees have had. But for me, I was 35 when they established the so-called Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
So I'm already like, in rock and roll terms, I'm already over the hill.
Yeah.
It's like I don't need to, And plus, I never considered myself a rock and roll musician. Like, I have played it, and some people have played it, but I consider myself just a musician. I'll play any freaking genre.
Yeah.
I don't want to exist in that box. So I've always taken umbrage when people just say rock musician Todd Rungren, because if you look at my greater catalog, it's not. There is some in there, but it isn't what it's all about.
But I think you're more rock and roll than Janet Jackson.
Well, that was, one of the things I studied up on was, when they first established it. Well, Hall of Fame is a weird thing. That's a sports thing.
Right.
That's for people who haven't done it for like 20 years, so you can sort of measure them, against, measure their career, measure them against other players, and it's based on statistics a lot, really measurable things. Musicians don't have to retire. You don't have to stop.
Right.
So,
although a lot of them should do.
Yeah, maybe some should do, but your measure isn't fully taken until you're dead.
Yeah.
And so, like, if I'm still alive, I don't want to be in freaking Hall of Fame, you know. And I thought they're certainly going to run out of people way before, things get to that. And I just the other night confirmed to myself that theory. The first class that was inducted, first of all, was about 65%, 70% black musicians. And then with the white guys that you would expect, like Jerry Lee Lewis and Elvis Presley.
Yeah.
That. The most recent class is all English musicians except for the two ladies.
Janet Jackson
and Stevie Nicks. And the only black act was Janet Jackson.
Yeah.
So there's something going on there, in terms of whatever the original mandate was. It has to have shifted way into some other place.
Well, I'm sure it's politics involved as well, even though you supposedly vote on it, right? It's the members, or it's the people who...
Nobody knows who.
Yeah.
Nobody. There's no list somewhere where you can say, who it is. I mean, even for the Oscars, you can... it's people who belong to certain guilds and stuff like that who get the ballots, so you can find out who votes for that. But it's kind of a mystery. Supposedly, if you've been in, you get a ballot. If you've already been inducted,
I got in.
Yeah, and you get a ballot.
I don't know. I've never seen it. I don't even have my bleeding statue. It's still in. Because we didn't show up.
Yeah, I heard. Yeah, John Lydon wouldn't show up, would he?
And Bowie didn't show up.
Well, that's what I mean. That's the irony, because even a lot of the acts that went in this year, like The Cure and even Def
Roxy
Leppard,
Music.
Yeah, and they asked them, and they say, "Well, we're English. It's not really our thing. We're into the real rock and roll, like from the '50s and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That when it was like kids' music, and this whole idea of like old people's establishment, dress in a tuxedo and pay $10,000 for a table and that sort of stuff doesn't seem like
a seat, not a table.
Yeah, a seat per seat. Okay,
I believe so. I could be wrong.
It just doesn't sound like rock and roll, does it?
Of course not.
So
Ozzy didn't show up, did he?
maybe not on purpose.
Yeah. No, I don't know.
Went to the wrong event.
Yeah. We're here with Todd Rungren and having a good old chit chat. If you want to see Todd, he's playing tomorrow at the Wilton, May 9th, and Friday, May 10th. He's got an autobiography out. He's doing a book signing from 2 to 4 at Amoeba. And we're going to play a Todd Rundgren song right now.
Oh, geez.
I Saw the Light from Somewhere Anything album in 1972. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Except it's something, anything.
What did I say?
Somewhere.
I did?
Yeah.
Somewhere over the rim.
Yeah.
Take it away, Sam. You're listening to Jonesy's Jukebox on KLOS. That was Todd Rungren. No, it wasn't. It was Todd Rungren. He did produce that record.
Yes, it did.
That was the New York Dolls, Personality Crisis. Beautiful. And then I Saw the Light from the Something Anything album.
You are correct, sir.
Did I get it right that time?
Yeah.
Which was released in 1972. I know we talked a bit about the... I'm sure you're bored talking about albums that you produced, and I know we talked about it when you were here before about the New York Dolls, because I'm such a big fan. When that was a big shift for me, that band. When prior to them I was like 16, around 16, and I was a massive Faces fan, Rod Stewart and the Faces.
I was a fan of the original Faces.
Small Faces.
Small Faces, yes.
With Steve Marriott.
Yes, yes.
Ian McLagan, Kenny Jones.
Amazing band, yeah.
Ronnie Lane, yeah. They were a bit more trippy, for sure.
Well, Itchy-Coo Park was certainly trippy. But I mean, Tin Soldier, that song just slays me every time I hear it.
He has a great voice.
Yeah.
Soul voice.
And then there was Humble Pie.
Yeah. I didn't mind them.
I didn't mind them, but then they were kind of like more of a jam band, lots of long, I don't need no doctor for 10 minutes, that kind of thing.
He was in it
Peter Frampton was
for a little bit, yeah. He can't play anymore.
I heard he's got, I don't know what the condition is, but I heard that has announced that he's retiring.
Yeah. So there you go. He ain't getting in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
He is or isn't?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't think he's in there.
I don't care.
If
I don't care about me, why would I care about him?
Oh, man, that's funny. So the Dolls. Did you understand? Did you think, who are these lunatics? I'm do the best I can, or did you kind of get the wildness about them, like guys dressed up as women?
Well, there was a thing going on at the time in New York City.
Yeah.
It was a lot of bands competing. Wayne County, and it became a magnet for a lot of that. Iggy Pop kind of left the Stooges and became part of that scene, and it was very club oriented, very almost like pop up clubs. They would find an empty storefront and the band would play in there.
Right.
And I realized there was a scene going on, and I also had bought a house upstate and realized that I was going to be spending a lot less time in New York. So I said, one of these bands is going to break out of this thing, and it seemed like it was going to be the New York Dolls. They were like starting to rise above the rest of it, because ironically enough, even when incompetence is the yardstick, some people are still more competent than others. That was always the thing about them, and the thing about punk that essentially emulated them. It was a band that critics could understand because critics could imagine themselves playing that music.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what set them off. But that sort of effect applies to anybody who hasn't really taken playing seriously before.
Yeah.
And wants to pick up a guitar and stuff. And then you suddenly realize that a basic component of rock and roll was always your attitude.
Yeah.
It was always not just playing the guitar, how you held the guitar, and what you did with your, how you bobbed around with the guitar,
Sure.
what you did with your hair and how you dressed and all that other stuff. And so, that was kind of the criteria that was, was taboo to go past like 3 chords in a song.
Yeah.
It was taboo to play anything slower than, 140 beats per minute or something like that. It became its own thing, essentially. following that usual cyclic thing that happens with music or any sort of popular art form. It gets all overly refined.
Yeah.
It gets industrialized. It gets taken over by other entities who don't actually care about the quality of it, but how much money can be made with it. And then it all breaks down again to something that is bottom up.
Yeah.
So after punk, after disco, we had punk. And then after punk, we had 80s.
Arena rock.
Synth rock and arena rock and stuff like that. Very much formulaic. And then we had grunge.
Yeah.
Broke down again. Stuff like that. And the last breakdown, I believe, was actually EDM was the last breakdown.
Who's
where
EDM?
one guy can take his computer and go
Oh.
into his bedroom
Yeah.
and just come up with a thump, 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 and weird sounds and stuff like that, and then go out and play to 100, 200, 500,000 people.
With his computer.
Yeah, with nothing but his computer.
It sickens me that people. I wish I would have thought of that.
That's what I mean. It's so fucking simple. You do have the 7-second delay here, okay? Right, okay. I saw somebody jump for the button, okay? It's so very, very simple,
Yeah.
that it does have that, all those components of rock and roll. You teach yourself how to do it, it's all artifice, it's almost very little actual material.
Right.
And just make it look huge.
Yeah. But at the concert, I mean, if you look at the crowd, they go way more nuts than a rock concert.
Because it's about them. That was the
Yeah.
other genius thing about it is
Yeah.
like, it's something they can understand, and it's all about them because there's lights on the guy on the stage, but almost all the lights are going on the audience.
Yeah.
It's all about you guys, laser beams on you
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So that's why it's so popular. It's easy to comprehend, and it's all about you and the people around you.
Maybe some substances being taken as well.
Oh, that always helps, but when was it? 'Twas ever thus,
Yeah.
Started with beer, and then, actually got a little more complicated.
Quaaludes.
Yeah, Quaaludes, acid,
Did you
meth.
Did you do a lot of acid when you were young?
I didn't do acid per se. I have likely, it's not like you went and got a prescription for it, so you never knew what you were taking. Some guy on the street made it, so it was called acid, and I presume that I had taken LSD in some form or another at least once. But when I was working with the first version of Utopia, I somehow came into possession of a shoebox full of peyote buttons,
Yeah.
and I was high for a month.
Yeah.
I would clean 3 buttons in the morning. I'd have one for breakfast, one for lunch, and one for dinner, and until pretty much the shoebox ran out.
I don't think I did mushrooms. I don't think I ever did peyote. What's the symptoms?
Well, there are similar.
It's trippy.
Yeah, they're both trippy. One, the essential ingredient in peyote is mescaline. The essential ingredient in mushrooms is psilocybin. Both of them can have similar effects, and like most psychedelic drugs, it's really tailored. It's going to be your trip. It's not going to be exactly like anybody else's. But
And it lasts a long time. One trip lasts.
yeah, but also there's a popular thing nowadays is microdosing, and essentially that's what I was doing. I wasn't getting out of my mind. I would go through the entire day completely functional.
Oh.
I would go to, we were building a studio. I would go and wire the studio
Wow.
while I'm
Yeah.
tripping out. But that's the whole thing. You
can function.
there are times when you want to, have your ego destroyed, because that needs to happen every once in a while. But there are times when you just want to get kind of this airy, expansive. To me, it seemed like I was like 6 inches taller than I normally was. I was suddenly over everybody's head a little bit, and I could see things coming before they actually happened.
Wow, like mind-bending kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's just it's more of a state of mind rather than just like hallucinating all the time.
Yeah.
It's just a completely
Enlightening?
Yeah, you just see things differently. You don't take things as seriously as you normally do. You know, you get a sort of emotional detachment and a certain amount of amusement out of everything,
Yeah.
and that's good for you.
Maybe you had your platform boots on when you felt 6 inches taller.
Yeah, that's it. I accidentally put 2 pairs of platform boots on.
What are we doing? We playing some music?
Yeah.
What you got there?
Play something from Wizard.
Wizard, we're going to play
Woo woo!
A True Star.
Yeah, this is after the psychedelics.
This was after it?
Yeah,
Jonesy's
during and after.
Jonesy's Jukebox, here with Todd Rungren. Take it away, son. You're listening to Jonesy's Jukebox on KLOS. It is 12:53 on a Wednesday.
I dosed you.
You have. I'm seeing 4 of you. That was Patti Smith, Dancing Barefoot, from an album Wave that was released in 1979 that you produced, Mr. Todd Rungren. How was that experience? Was you hip to her way before you did an album?
Patty and I were friends before she ever had a band. She was one of the first people I met when I moved into New York City.
Is that when she was
after
hanging
I
out?
quit the NAS. Yeah. She was kind of
Hanging out with that Basquiat and all that stuff?
No, Robert Mapplethorpe.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
See, I'm off today. I'm not on it. Everything's a little off.
It's that bird, you know, you kind of just spooked you. The bird in the driveway.
That was so bizarre, man. There was out in the parking lot of KLOS. Apparently, it's been going on since 6 this morning. But there's a crow. It's obviously a baby, and it can't fly. And the mother's hovering around, trying to get it to fly or protect it. And it's bizarre, man. I think it's done because the legs look all smashed up.
It took your parking space too.
That was the main thing. The parking lot is so busy today, and there's this bleeding bird with this whole spot.
Yeah, and the staff is setting up a perimeter around it as well.
Putting pylons around it. I don't think he's going to make it.
It didn't look happy.
No, it looked confused, like I am. Looked very confused. Do you think she's very talented lyrically, Patti Smith?
She always was. Well, she was originally a poet, and I always considered her an illustrator as well as a poet. I mean, she does some amazing drawings right off the top of her head. And she was working in a bookstore at the time.
Yeah.
And the first time I saw her perform, we were just kind of friends that hung out, and I knew that she wrote poetry, and I knew that she drew, and she wasn't actually even living in the city yet. She was commuting to New Jersey and like staying with people in the city before she moved in with Robert Mapplethorpe. And I saw her do a solo show with just like a little record player and stuff like that, and she essentially freewheeled the whole thing. Ad-libbed poetry, sang along with songs in this very innocent, childish sort of voice, and danced, played like a Martha and the Vandellas and danced, and she can really dance too. So it was just an incredibly engaging evening, and I thought that was what she would eventually do, that she would become like a performance artist.
Yeah.
But she decided to start a band, which was great, but it kind of disguised all the other stuff that she did with the loudness of the music. So in some ways, it was a bit of a disappointment for me because everyone was missing this other aspect of what she did, but that she would come back to in later years. I mean, she would do poetry readings and stuff in later years. So, but I did see her just the other night. She's doing great.
She's
grown-up kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was I going to say? I just spaced out then. I forgot what I was going to say.
That frickin' bird.
I'm telling you.
It's like, you're Edgar Allan Poe now, and that bird has got in your head.
We're going to visit the Duke? We're going to visit the Duke. We're here with Todd Rungren. Let me give you a plug. He's at the tomorrow and Friday at the Wilton, the 9th and 10th. And Friday is a book signing at Amoeba between 2 and 4.
Starting at 2, but don't wait until 4.
Yeah. Yeah. He's giving away a lot of stuff, I heard, as well. But he's giving away feathers that we're going to get from the bird outside.
Lucky feathers.
Let's go and visit the Duke, yeah? Take it away. Jonesy's Jukebox on KLOS. It is 1:13 on a Wednesday. Kind of cloudy. Can't figure out if it's trying to rain or not. But it's, I don't mind it. It feels heavy, though, the weather.
Does it remind you of England at all?
Oh, man, it's been so long since I've been there. But, yeah, I mean, it used to bum me out.
Yeah.
Overcast. Do you think weather affects you? I mean, you live in a beautiful place.
Yeah, it does, especially if it doesn't change. I mean, it's not so bad when,
Here and there.
Oh, you have a lovely week and then, a rainy day or something like that. But, yeah, the worst is just that overcast where it doesn't do anything except look gray all the time.
Other than bum you out. But that was Todd Rungren.
We're talking the weather.
Hey, all else fails.
Yeah.
We're here with Todd Rungren. Can we still be friends? Beautiful. Then we had Meatloaf. 2 out of 3 ain't bad. Bat Out of Hell was the name of that album.
Yeah.
Who came up with that title, Bat Out of Hell? Was it the big guy?
No, actually, Meatloaf and Jim Steinman were kind of like the yin and yang of the Meatloaf phenomenon. Jim Steinman did all the writing, the conceptualizing, basically, of this character that turned out to be Meatloaf. But a lot of that came from the fact that Jim Steinman actually wanted to work on Broadway. He wanted to do big, epic Broadway shows, Wagnerian presentations and stuff like that. And so I guess in that sense, there's a bit of closure in that Bat Out of Hell musical is now playing somewhere. Toronto, I think.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So he finally got the musical off the ground, but it took forever.
Yeah.
So
1977 that was released. Man, that sold a lot of albums.
Over 50 million, yes.
That must have bought you a nice car.
And actually, the place that I'm living in, that's how I pay for that.
Does it still generate a bit of dough? Probably not as lot because people don't.
I'm not involved in it. What happened was after Cleveland International was distributed by Epic Records, I believe, which was an arm of Columbia Records, which got bought in the 90s by Sony.
Yeah.
And so Meatloaf thought that somehow through the years he had been underpaid because people were going out bragging about how many albums had been sold. People from the label or something like that bragging about how many albums had been sold. And he thought, well, I don't know that I've gotten that much in royalties. So they wanted to do an audit. Which essentially means that you chip in to pay for lawyers and accountants and stuff to go through this whole thing against their lawyers and accountants. Yeah. And I said, no, I'm not into that. Yeah. And so I offered him back the points that I had on the record. I said, you want them? He said, no, I don't. So I sold them back to Sony.
Yeah.
And got enough money to buy the property, which I'm living on now. So I don't know what kind of royalties it gets nowadays, but I got what I wanted.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I remember. Was it like millions, right, when it first came out? It seemed
it took forever actually to first break. Okay. When I hadn't planned it that way, but it turned out that I wound up underwriting the making of Bat Out of Hell. And after the record was done, they went out. I moved on to other things, and they went out to try and find someone to distribute the record because Bearsville Records, the label that I was on, passed on it. You know, they said, we're not interested. Warner's the distributor, got a chance to hear it. They didn't want it either. Nobody could figure out how to do these, you know, how to promote these overly long songs with the big fat guy. And finally they found a label, Cleveland International, tiny label. The only other artist was Ian Hunter on the label.
Wow.
And they put out a single and nothing happened. They put out another single and nothing happened. But Steve Popovich, the president of Cleveland International, wouldn't give up on the record. Well, he didn't have anything else to work on either, so, you know, but he wouldn't give up on the record. And a combination of things happened. One was his persistence. The other, another was the fact that they toured the whole time. They constantly toured, and so they were starting to build up a name and a buzz around the act. And then MTV came out about the same time.
Right.
And there weren't a whole lot of videos that fit the format that were, you know, for MTV.
Yeah.
But one was Paradise by the Dashboard Light, which ran like 7 minutes, and DJs then were just like VJs were just like DJs. They put something long so they can go up to the roof and get high for a while.
Yeah.
You know, put on Dark Side of the Moon.
Yeah.
So they played it like every hour. You know, on the original MTV, they played Paradise by the Dashboard Light like almost hourly. And it was a combination of that, the endless touring, and Steve Popovich's persistence that eventually broke them on the third single.
Wow. Most people would have quit, right, after the one or two singles?
The record label would have quit. They would have said, you know, we're not going anywhere with this record, and we don't want another one either. So that, you know, most people assume that this was ordained somehow. No, it was purely an accident and purely, you know, like I say, a confluence of a number of things that just made it happen.
MTV was so important for a lot of people who would not normally have cracked it.
Likely no, you know, and then there was people who really figured out how to work it, figured out that
after a while,
See, like I always thought of music videos as something like you find the best piece of music you can, you know, the most evocative, you know, or something that seems like visuals would go well with it, and then you craft some visuals to go with it. But no, what it actually turned out to be is a commercial for your record.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be making an ad for yourself, you know.
Yeah.
And so it may be the worst piece of music on the album because it's a single.
Yeah.
And so MTV eventually became, you know, a lot of it was self-same, smoke bombs, semi-nude women, all of that stuff because it worked, you know.
It was like the kind of beginning of VHS, that look. After film, you know, like after film, it went to video,
Yeah, but like digital TV too. We were a lot of things were used special effects in video, which were a lot cheaper to do than they were in film.
Yeah,
like color keying, you know, putting yourself in front of a different image. You know, that sort of thing was a lot easier to do in video than it was in film. So
like porn, it used to be, you know, 42nd Street, and then it went to video.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that was the result of the battle between Sony Betamax and the VHS format.
Yeah.
And the reason why VHS won is because Sony refused to let anybody put porn on the Betamax format. That killed them, you know. It's like, what would the internet be without free porn?
Yeah. I wouldn't know, but yeah.
It would be about 10% of the size that it actually is.
It is funny, isn't it, that people do like the internet for that reason. Not me.
Oh, of course. I didn't mean to imply
no, I didn't
that
think
you would
was
ever
implying me.
And of course not I.
Did you ever, when you were writing and record company people on your stuff, did you ever fall into that trap, like, I need a single, or the record company telling you, well, we don't need a single, Todd, what you got?
Well, I had to think that way when I was producing other people, because often that was part of the mandate. The act would want a single as well. So even if you knew that the rest of the record was not going to make top 40, you had to root around for something, you know, that you thought would at least be releasable. And sometimes it succeeds, sometimes it works, but it's one of those things where a lot of times you have no control over it. I've had what they call turntable hits, where a DJ will play the hell out of it, but for some reason it doesn't take off. The DJ likes it, the audience doesn't like it, or something like that. Or, for instance, Bang the Drum All Day was never released as a single. What would have been probably the biggest single I ever had was never released as a single. So, because it was so uncharacteristic,
But it got played a lot on the radio.
Well, what happened was first college radio picked it up for some reason. Then sporting events started to take on a life of its own at like sporting events, starting I think with hockey and then football games. But also DJs started to use it as a Friday drive time song. It would play it every Friday.
Yeah.
Because of that. And I bang on that drum like it was the boss's head. It's everybody's TGI Friday sort of sentiment. So it started getting played in that context, and then it eventually started getting used in like films and commercials and things like that. And for a couple of years, it was like the Carnival Cruise Line's theme song. And at that point, I almost didn't have to work. They were, I almost could have stayed home and banged the drum all day because, they were paying lots of money to make that their theme song. Then they started sinking all those boats and decided that they need to change their image. So this is something a little more sober, I guess.
Yeah. Well, this is definitely the song we're going to play next was definitely a single, and it did well. Psychedelic Furs.
Oh yeah.
Love My Way. You did the album as well, though, right? Not just
called
the song.
Forever Now. Was the name of the.
We're going to play it after the Duke.
The Duke, okay.
You know what the Duke is?
What is that?
The Duke of Kent. We're going to pay the rent.
Oh, pay the rent, Duke of Kent. Okay.
It's a bit of,
Yeah, I know. It's Cockney slang.
Cockney and bleeding idiot. Cockneys, idiots they are. So we'll be right back. We're here with Todd Rungren. He's playing tomorrow and Friday at the Wilton. And he's got a book signing at Amoeba from 2 to 4 on Friday as well. Take it away, son. Jonesy's Jukebox on KLOS. It is 1:13 on a Wednesday. Kind of cloudy. Can't figure out if it's trying to rain or not. But it's, I don't mind it. It feels heavy though, the weather.
Does it remind you of England at all?
Oh man, it's been so long since I've been there, but yeah, I mean it used to bum me out. Overcast. Do you think weather affects you? I mean, you live in a beautiful place.
Yeah, it does. Especially if it doesn't change. I mean, it's not so bad when here
and there.
Oh, you have a lovely week and then a rainy day or something like that. But yeah, the worst is just that overcast where it doesn't do anything except look gray all the time.
Other than bum you out. But that was Todd Rungren.
We're talking the weather.
Hey, all else fails.
Yeah.
We're here with Todd Rungren. Can we still be friends? Beautiful. Then we had Meatloaf. 2 out of 3 ain't bad. Bat Out of Hell was the name of that album.
Yeah.
Who came up with that title, Bat Out of Hell? Was it the big guy?
No, actually, Meatloaf and Jim Steinman were kind of like the yin and yang of the Meatloaf phenomenon. Jim Steinman did all the writing, the conceptualizing, basically, of this character that turned out to be Meatloaf. But a lot of that came from the fact that Jim Steinman actually wanted to work on Broadway. He wanted to do big, epic Broadway shows, Wagnerian presentations and stuff like that. And so I guess in that sense, there's a bit of closure in that Bat Out of Hell musical is now playing somewhere. Toronto, I think.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So he finally got the musical off the ground, but it took forever.
Yeah.
So
1977 that was released. Man, that sold a lot of albums.
Over 50 million, yes.
That must have bought you a nice car.
And actually, the place that I'm living in, that's how I pay for that.
Does it still generate a bit of dough? Probably not as lot because people don't.
I'm not involved in it. What happened was after Cleveland International was distributed by Epic Records, I believe, which was an arm of Columbia Records, which got bought in the 90s by Sony.
Yeah.
And so Meatloaf thought that somehow through the years he had been underpaid because people were going out bragging about how many albums had been sold. People from the label or something like that bragging about how many albums had been sold, and he thought, well, I don't know that I've gotten that much in royalties. So they wanted to do an audit, which essentially means that you chip in to pay for lawyers and accountants and stuff to go through this whole thing against their lawyers and accountants.
Yeah.
And I said, no, I'm not into that.
Yeah.
And so I offered him back the points that I had on the record. I said, you want them? He said, no, I don't. So I sold them back to Sony.
Yeah.
And got enough money to buy the property, which I'm living on now. So I don't know what kind of royalties it gets nowadays, but I got what I wanted.
Yeah. I mean, I remember. Was it like millions, right, when it first came out? It seemed
it took forever actually to first break.
Okay.
When I hadn't planned it that way, but it turned out that I wound up underwriting the making of Bat Out of Hell. And after the record was done, they went out. I moved on to other things, and they went out to try and find someone to distribute the record because Bearsville Records, the label that I was on, passed on it. They said, we're not interested. Warner's the distributor, got a chance to hear it. They didn't want it either. Nobody could figure out how to do these, how to promote these overly long songs with the big fat guy. And finally, they found a label, Cleveland International, tiny label. The only other artist was Ian Hunter on the label.
Wow.
And they put out a single and nothing happened. They put out another single and nothing happened. But Steve Popovich, the president of Cleveland International, wouldn't give up on the record. Well, he didn't have anything else to work on either, so but he wouldn't give up on the record. And a combination of things happened. One was his persistence. The other, another was the fact that they toured the whole time. They constantly toured, and so they were starting to build up a name and a buzz around the act. And then MTV came out about the same time.
Right.
And there weren't a whole lot of videos that fit the format that were, for MTV.
Yeah.
But one was Paradise by the Dashboard Light, which ran like 7 minutes, and DJs then were just like VJs were just like DJs. It was something long so they can go up to the roof and get high for a while.
Yeah.
Put on Dark Side of the Moon.
Yeah.
So they played it like every hour. On the original MTV, they played Paradise by the Dashboard Light like almost hourly. And it was a combination of that, the endless touring, and Steve Popovich's persistence that eventually broke them on the third single.
Wow. Most people would have quit, right, after the one or two singles?
The record label would have quit. They would have said, we're not going anywhere with this record, and we don't want another one either. So that, most people assume that this was ordained somehow. No, it was purely an accident and purely, like I say, a confluence of a number of things that just made it happen.
MTV was so important for a lot of people who would not normally have cracked it.
Likely no, and then there was people who really figured out how to work it, figured out that
after a while,
See, like I always thought of it as, of music videos as something like you find the best piece of music you can, the most evocative, or something that seems like visuals would go well with it, and then you craft some visuals to go with it. But no, what it actually turned out to be is a commercial for your record.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be making an ad for yourself,
Yeah.
And so it may be the worst piece of music on the album because it's a single.
Yeah.
And so MTV eventually became, a lot of it was self-same, smoke bombs, semi-nude women, all of that stuff because it worked,
It was like the kind of beginning of VHS, that look. After film, like after film, it went to video. Yeah,
Yeah, but like digital TV too. We were a lot of things were like where you use special effects in video, which were a lot cheaper to do than they were in film.
yeah,
Like color keying, putting yourself in
Yeah.
front of a different image. you
yeah,
know,
yeah,
That sort of thing was a lot easier to do in video than it was in film. So
yeah. Like porn, it used to be 42nd Street, and then it went to video.
yeah, exactly. Well, that was the result of the battle between Sony Betamax and the
Right.
VHS format.
Yeah.
And the reason why VHS won is because Sony refused to let anybody put porn on the Betamax format. That killed them, It's like, what would the internet be without free porn?
Yeah, I wouldn't know, but yeah,
It would be about 10% of the size that it actually is.
it is funny, isn't it? That yeah, people do like the internet for that reason. Not me.
Oh, of course. I didn't mean to imply
No, I didn't
that
think
you would
was
ever.
implying me.
And of course, not I. But
Did you ever, when you were writing and record company people on your stuff, did you ever fall into that trap? Like, I need a single, or the record company's telling you, "Well, we don't need a single, Todd. What you got?"
well, I had to think that way when I was producing other people because
Yeah.
often that was part of the mandate. The act would want a single as well. So even if you knew that the rest of the record was not going to make top 40, you had to root around for something, that you thought would at least be releasable. And sometimes it succeeds, sometimes it works, but it's one of those things where a lot of times you have no control over it. I've had what they call turntable hits, where a DJ will play the hell out of it, but for some reason it doesn't
pick up.
take off.
Yeah.
DJ likes it, the audience doesn't like it,
Yeah.
or something like that. Or, for instance, Bang the Drum All Day was never released as a single. What would have been probably the biggest single I ever had was never released as a single.
Yeah.
So, because it was so uncharacteristic,
But it got played a lot on the radio. That
Well,
track.
what happened was first college radio picked it up for some reason. Then sporting events
Right.
started to take on a life of its own at like sporting events, starting I think with hockey and then football games. But also DJs started to use it as a Friday drive time song. It would play it every Friday
Yeah.
because of that. And I bang on the drum like it was the boss's head. It's everybody's TGI Friday
Yeah.
sort of sentiment.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
so it started getting played in that context, and then it eventually started getting used in like films and commercials and things like that. And for a couple of years, it was like the Carnival Cruise Line's theme song. And at that point, I almost didn't have to work. They were, I almost could have stayed home and banged the drum all day because, they were paying lots of money to make that their theme song. Then they started sinking all those boats and decided that they need to change their image.
Yeah.
This is something a little more sober, I guess.
Yeah. Well, this is definitely the song we're going to play next. Was definitely a single, and it did well. Psychedelic Furs,
Oh yeah,
Love My Way. You did the album as well, though,
yeah.
right? Not
It's
just
called
a song.
Forever Now. The
Yeah.
song with
We're going to play it after the Duke.
the Duke. Okay.
You know what the Duke is?
What is that?
The Duke of Kent. We're going to pay the rent.
Oh, Pay the Rent, Duke of Kent. Okay.
It's a bit of,
Yeah, I know. It's Cockney slang.
Cockney and bleeding idiot. Cockneys, idiots they are. So we'll be right back. We're here with Todd Rungren. He's playing tomorrow and Friday at the Wilton, and he's got a book signing at Amoeba from 2 to 4 on Friday as well. Take it away, son. You're listening to Jonesy's Jukebox, KLOS. That was Todd Rungren, bang on drum all day. There's no the.
Well, we were talking about the subconscious.
Yeah.
That's a song I dreamed.
You
It's
did.
not a song I would have thought up.
Yeah.
It had to have come from my subconscious. Why it did, I don't know. And maybe some little fairy snuck in there, and said, "Here, this doesn't make any sense to you now, but in 20 or 30 years, you're going to make a lot of money off of this when a cruise line uses it for their theme song."
Because it's so not you.
No, that's what I mean. It's not something I would have sat down and wrote. I'd say, "Oh, I got to write this song." No, it's got a simplicity and mindlessness to it that can only have come from a subconscious.
So will you be playing this at the Wilton?
Unfortunately, no, we don't play this. It's a lot of people would be happy if I did, but I
Yeah.
have to admit that it's one of my least favorite songs
Yeah.
to play. In fact, I've only played it when I was out with Ringo because he insists I play it. But
How did it go down?
everybody loves the song.
Yeah.
It's not as if I don't like to play it because people don't like it. I don't like to play it because
You just don't like playing it.
it's just a lot of work because I have to play the drums through it. I did a ukulele version of it though. That's a little
Yeah.
easier. That one I will whip it out sometimes.
You're not playing at the Amoeba. You're just doing signing.
No,
right?
just signing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's Friday. Mr. Todd Rungren is at Amoeba from 2 to 4, and then he's playing that night too at the Wilton, and he's playing tomorrow at the Wilton too. Love My Way, Forever Now, 1982. That was a good one. Were they fun? They seemed kind of normal dudes.
They were still a little bit.
Didn't know the ropes.
No, they were fun. They had a couple records out already. They'd had a hit in Pretty in Pink.
Yeah.
But they went through a personnel change. They used to have a sax player. They featured a sax player, and they fired the sax player. And I think they had a keyboard player and got rid of him too. So when they came to do the record, the lineup had sort of changed a little bit, and ergo the sound changed a bit. And they were a little bit, punky, attitudinous. Definitely,
Yeah.
they had attitude because you had to. That was,
Yeah.
everyone had to. They came from London, and everybody in London was still in that sort of, post-Sex Pistols
Yeah.
phase where you had to have attitude about it, you know.
Yeah.
And so, but we got along well, and they were very open to the ideas that I had, about doing the record because since they had a brand new lineup, they weren't exactly sure where to go. They were still writing some songs for the record, which I usually frown upon. But if you start recording and then people start writing, then that can be a good thing.
Yeah. Now, you did like the first Sparks album, didn't you?
Yeah, they were called Half Nelson at the time.
Like a wrestling term.
Yeah, it was like it wasn't it was spelled HAF Nelson,
Yeah.
but it was like a wrestling term,
Yeah.
and they were just really weird. It was the reason why I did them. Sometimes I do things because I know nobody else will do it,
Yeah.
but it has to be done. Somebody has to do that. So it was like Meatloaf. I said nobody. They'd been to every producer in the industry, and nobody wanted to work with it. They couldn't figure out how to put it together. And I
Yeah.
thought, this is so weird. This is a spoof of Bruce Springsteen, and I'm going to do it.
Yeah. Did you get a call from? Oh, he's gonna kill me.
He's going to kill you.
The Baby Driver. Edgar Wright.
Yes, I did. I was in their documentary.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he gave me a wonderful surprise. He actually hid the brothers
Oh,
while I
yeah?
was doing the interview, and then brought them in at the very end. And we hadn't seen each other like in decades.
Yeah. I don't think it's out. It's not finished yet.
I'm not sure if it's finished, but
Did
I
you
did it a while ago, maybe 5 months ago, maybe.
Yeah. Did you have to wear black?
There was no particular requirement. Why was that a concept?
Yeah, I mean, they said you wear a black T-shirt, and because it's like black and white in the background.
Oh, maybe I was already wearing something
Yeah.
black.
But I was a huge Sparks fan, especially the Kimono My House.
Yeah.
That was a great album, and yeah, I can't wait to see that documentary. There's a lot of
Interesting. Yeah, a lot of people have, guilty pleasure about Sparks. It's one of those things where a lot of Americans don't. They were never really big
Right.
in the USA. They
Right.
went to England and
Right.
became big in England and in Europe. So a lot of people don't really know the history of the band or even understand the kind of like the quirky nature of what they do.
Yeah.
But that I'm sort of thankful that they do it, because
Yeah.
everybody's trying to be, Imagine
Yeah.
Dragons nacadays,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
there's got to be enough of that already.
I'm with you there. I went and saw them at the place on Wilshire Boulevard, that El Rey, and they were fantastic. They had a good little rocking band, and they were great, man. They were so good.
I love Russell, just deadpan the whole time.
Yeah, that's Ron.
I mean Ron, yeah, sorry, get them mixed up,
But yeah, and he's a sweetheart. He's a sweetheart.
oh, they're both great guys.
Yeah.
They're still kind of almost like kids in a way.
Yeah.
And still having fun with music. They did a thing with Franz Ferdinand,
Right.
that little super group.
Right, right. That album, the Cabona My House, that was a big album, and I saw them at Hammersmith Odeon, now at Apollo, and they were rocking. It was like a rocking band. It wasn't weird. I mean, the structures was weird, but it was big distorted guitar, really rocking. And they were one of my favourites. And you're right, it never took off. That happens, doesn't it? In the States, no one cares about it, but in England, they were going nuts.
Yeah, no accounting for this business.
You just never know, right?
Yeah, no, there's only room enough for so much, but things have changed so much that there are a lot of great bands out there that are more or less just self-promoted. They never went through the usual sort of go to a record label audition, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
They self-promoted from the beginning, and they're out there to be found. They're just, they're on the internet.
Yeah.
Like the Lemon Twigs.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
a couple of kids, and their first record, they were like 17 years old when they put out
Yeah.
first record. Now they're only just like hitting their 20s.
Yeah. In the 90s, one of the first offerings you did to sell your stuff on the internet.
Patronet, yeah.
Did it happen?
I did. It was kind of in an era where I picked the most difficult time to try and do it. It was before there's Facebook, all these other social media things.
Yeah.
But essentially, it was a social media platform where fans would directly support artists and their projects, and essentially take the record label out of the mix.
So it's like GoFundMe.
Kind of, yeah. There was a GoFundMe aspect about it. There was an interactive aspect about it. It was metaphorically more like television than it was the internet, because the internet started as a print metaphor.
Yeah.
It was text with pictures and stuff like that, and it was hard to get video in there. But we used a lot of Flash and things like that, and so it was way ahead of its time. But it also revealed all of the things that were going to happen. Security issues, identity issues. Where people go on and pretend to be other people,
Right.
Russian trolls and that sort of
Yeah.
thing. I had that. People would go on and pretend to be me, and I had to keep thinking up newer and newer sort of nicknames for myself to ban other people from using.
Yeah.
Where they kept trying to fool other people into thinking that it was me. Privacy things like your data and your credit card information, all that stuff, dealing with all of that stuff. But the worst part about it was too early technologically, because things kept changing every year.
Right.
If Apple was the only platform that I had to target, I would have been great. But the problem is it was the PC market, and PCs were just chaos.
Yeah.
Still a zoo, PCs, because there's no standardization. That's the difference. All Apples are the same. All PCs are different.
But that's like the most sold in the world, right? PCs is like
Well, it's a
work. People use them at workplaces.
yeah. Well, they're using workplaces because corporate companies make decisions based on the bottom line.
Right.
And the bottom line to
Little
them is how much
cheaper.
does it cost?
Yeah, yeah.
What's it cost? And the thing about PCs, Apple had a fixed price. You couldn't buy it They do to this day.
Yeah.
You know, the price of an apple is the price of an apple, no matter where you buy it. You have software and hardware integrated, fully integrated with each other. And the whole PC world is go out and buy a chassis, you know, go buy a motherboard, you know. All the time you're shopping for the cheapest thing you can find, and then you put it together. Microsoft software is always buggy and creepy and junky, you know, and stuff like that. So you don't realize the value of your own time.
Yeah.
You look at the bottom line. Oh, I put this together for half the price of an Apple, and it runs twice as fast.
Yeah.
Except you spend most of the time trying to put out bugs. You know, you wasted all that time building it,
Yeah.
starters,
Yeah.
and now you're the only one who knows how to service it, that sort of thing. So people just don't put a proper value on their own time.
Right. I attempted once to get on there, and I just didn't know what to do. It was so alien and weird. It's like having a BlackBerry as opposed to an iPhone.
Yeah.
A BlackBerry to me is a nightmare too.
Well, to me, it's less like basic things a lot of people don't even sense, like heuristics, the way the mouse feels, you know, how connected it feels to the cursor on the screen.
Yeah.
You know, whether it feels like you're actually doing that. Or for me, most PCs, I'm trying to get a little tiny checkbox. I'm trying to get the cursor to land on that little tiny checkbox, and I'm just struggling, and my hand is all tensed up. You know, I guess eventually you adapt to it and you figure out how to do it. But for me, the heuristics, the feel of it is completely different.
Yeah. How we doing with time?
We're doing okay. We do need to do a little contest here before we get done.
Do you want to do it? Do you want to do it now?
Yeah, let's do it now because people are waiting to qualify for the 5K Friday. So we'll do caller 25 right now at 800-955-KLOS to get in the running for the $5,000 that we're giving away at 5:30 on Fridays with Gary Moore. And you'll win a pair of tickets to Dead & Company at the Hollywood Bowl on June 3rd, and those tickets are provided by LNHS.
All right. So now what we doing? We've got a couple more.
One more song.
One more song, and then we're knocking it on the head. Well, I guess we'll have to play XTC then. Dear God, right?
Yeah.
Skylarking. Well, I saw a documentary about them guys a little while ago. It was very interesting. I really didn't know a lot of their story, but it was I don't know if you've seen it, but it was a good documentary.
I may have seen it, but yeah, it would have been a while ago.
Do you think he's a brainiac, the singer?
That he has what?
He's a brainiac, like he's a smart.
Very smart. That part of the problem is like he's always the smartest guy in the room, you know, and
One of
being,
them guys.
producing a record for them was always an issue because he always knew better than the producer what was supposed to happen, and what he normally would do is because he got stage fright really bad and the band stopped touring. And so the only time they ever made music was in the studio. So they didn't mind if they just spent a year making a record.
Yeah.
Because once the record's over, the fun's over. And so normally that's what would happen, and they would work on the record, take a long time to do it, and then it would come to the mixing, and then it would really start.
Yeah.
And essentially Andy would be so anal about the mixing that he would drive the producer out of the studio. Either you would go crazy or you had another project you finally had to go on to, and so you would just leave it to him. And fortunately, I caught the band at a point where their label had given them an ultimatum because their records were selling less and less and less.
We don't hear a single.
Yeah. Partly that, and partly the fact that since they never toured, they weren't promoting their own records.
Right.
So the only thing you can do is like get singles somehow.
Yeah.
And so I knew about the process. I knew what it was like to work with them. I actually, after I finished the record, I got a letter of condolence from Gus Dudgeon, because he had produced a record or two with them, and he knew what the experience was like. And for the first time ever, when we finally finished the record and it was time to mix it, I have a certain procedure, which is I'll mix it, then you come in and listen. You don't be there while I'm putting the mix together.
Yeah.
Because when you do that, everybody in the band only hears themselves. Can you make the drums a little louder? Can you make the guitar a little louder? It's not like nobody has any perspective about the whole thing. And so I will put together a mix, call them in, say, make suggestions now about how to change the mix. And a lot of times they'd be happy with it, minor suggestions. We got 3 songs in, and they said, we're going back to England. And I thought, oh, okay, great for me because I don't have to worry about them, torturing me through the mix. But, Andy went home and he badmouthed the record to anybody who would listen. To the press, he said, this is the worst record we ever made, because that was his mood at that particular point. And then, to add insult to injury, they took Dear God off the record.
Right.
They took it off the record. And this is the only time I ever did anything like it. I called up the A&R guy and I said, don't do this.
Yeah.
I usually leave the marketing to the label, say, I'll just make the thing, you market it. And I said, don't do this. Don't take Dear God off the label.
This was one of them songs that kind of took off on college radio, right?
Again, it was college radio. They paired it up with a Depeche Mode song that was also about God. I can't remember the title of it, but they would do like this, double play Dear God and this Depeche Mode song. And actually, Dear God was on the flip side of the single they released. The A side was Grass.
Right. And
so the record got flipped. They had to put Dear God back on the LP and remaster it. And they remastered it themselves, and they did it wrong. They started complaining about it, trying to blame it on me afterwards. So anyway, it's probably their most successful record, and so there.
Wow, wow, wow. Well, thanks for coming by, Todd.
Always a pleasure.
We're going to knock it on the head right now. We're going to leave you with XTC, Dear God. Moby's on the box tomorrow. And that was a good, informative chat with you. Thanks for coming by. Let me give you a plug again, yes?
Sure.
Tomorrow and Friday at the Wilton, Mr. Todd Rungren's playing. And on Friday from 2 to 4, he's doing a book signing at Amoeba Records. And we'll leave you with XTC, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.